This is New Mexico Frontiers. Presented by Veris Research.
Hello, and thank you for joining us for this edition of New Mexico Frontiers, the digital show. I'm Chad Brummett, and today we are talking about starting up businesses, getting businesses going, and the funding that is required to get all those businesses going. A lot of people have great ideas. They may think, I don't know where to start. I don't have investors. I don't have funding. And we kind of have what seems like a one-stop shop with us today. Adam Hammer joining us. You are the CEO and founder of Roadrunner Venture Studios, and a recent transplant to New Mexico, yes, from what I understand. So first of all, welcome to the studio. Welcome to New Mexico. Tell us a little bit about the Roadrunner Venture Studios and really what brought you to the land of enchantment.
Well, thank you, Chad. It's great to be with you today and to be here with your listeners and viewers. So we moved here about a year and a half ago to found Roadrunner in December of 2023. Roadrunner is unique. We're a company creation factory. Looks a little different than traditional venture and maybe a little different than a normal accelerator. We really are there to build companies from the ground up. That means, yes, we provide capital like funders might, but we also provide a whole set of services around product and hardware engineering and marketing and business modeling to help create companies, usually from the lab or from research institutions.
Okay.
And from the ground up. And we're headquartered here in Albuquerque, but are building a national network. So it'll be beyond here in New Mexico, but our flagship will be here.
When we talk about starting up businesses in New Mexico and, business-friendly states, what makes New Mexico a good place, particularly for the kind of work that you're interested in doing?
Yes. So we are focused on what I call frontier technologies. And frontier technologies are technologies that are critical to American security and American competitiveness. And so that means quantum, that means advanced energy, it means advanced manufacturing, microelectronics, next generation compute. Think of all the things that we believe are going to be the industries of the future and have real national security implications. A lot of our thesis in creating Roadrunner and the technologies we build is understanding that there is a geopolitical competition happening right now for the types of companies that are going to dominate in these frontier technologies and where they are built. And we want them to be built here in the United States and in specific here in New Mexico. New Mexico is ideal for a variety of reasons. One, one of the highest PhDs per capita, which is important for our line of work. It's also home to some of the best national R&D institutions. So take University of New Mexico, AFRL, Los Alamos, Sandia National Labs, and many more. These are core partners in the work that we do. And frankly, there's a strong support from the government here. One of our partners that really we wouldn't be here without them is the State Investment Council of New Mexico.
Okay.
The SIC, along with the Economic Development Authority, the New Mexico Finance Authority, these have been key partners to help us build the infrastructure, help us get the patient capital we need to build companies from the ground up here. And it's unique to the state. The state is leaning in to help be a leader here in frontier technologies, and that's why we're building here.
Really? Okay. So did you kind of saw that this was coming and that the infrastructure and the environment, I guess, for New Mexico was going in that direction, and that's really kind of what brought you here and kind of thinking long term and next gen. Exactly. You felt New Mexico was there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay.
We ran a national search to think about where is the right place to build our first venture studio.
Okay.
We've always imagined this would be a national studio, but we were looking for where is there capital that is mission aligned around our mission to create frontier technologies here in the United States. Where is there a place where there is a government that's going to lean in to help support these early companies with non-dilutive grant funding and infrastructure grants? And where are there research institutions that will partner with us? All of those things, and most importantly, New Mexico has a long history of working in innovation and in technologies that are important to the United States security and competitiveness. It's kind of in the DNA here, which to us felt so appropriate to build here.
Well, and I'm sure too, wanting that infrastructure, I mean, that's always critical too. When you're looking to bring innovation, you're looking to bring businesses,
right.
How long is it going to take to get it up and running? And if you don't have that network already, it just makes your job infinitely more difficult,
That's
I
right.
would imagine.
That's right. And, we're not building software companies that, oftentimes think about part of how Silicon Valley was built and many of the accelerators that have created that really strong ecosystem for entrepreneurship there is the kind of software era where, companies could be built quickly and get to revenue quickly. We are building in the hard tech space. So when you're building a next generation robotics company or when you're building a new type of hydrogen energy electrolyzer, this takes time.
Yeah.
It's deep technology with lots of R&D. It takes lab space. It takes physical space. And oftentimes these companies take 18 to 24 months to get to revenue.
Right.
And really years after that to get to commercial maturity. Right. So you're really looking not only to your point for physical infrastructure, but for financial infrastructure and patient capital that understands what over the horizon investing looks like.
One thing that is interesting about you, first of all, is we hear of venture capitalists, right?
Yeah.
We've heard that phrase before, as you had mentioned, incubators, accelerators, a venture studio. This was you guys are the first time that I really kind of heard this idea. What separates you from those incubators, accelerators, and venture capitalists?
Yeah, we're pretty proud of the model that we're building, and our thesis is that look. This country has some amazing superpowers. In particular, I think about the strong research institutions we have. Still, across the world, folks want to go to university here. We have strong postdoc and PhD programs, and we're still kind of the envy of the world in terms of our national institutions. The second is we have some of the deepest capital markets in the world. And the third is we have some amazing talent. There are a lot of amazing innovators here. And unfortunately, our thesis has been that those three elements don't always work in concert to build new companies. And the reality is the university system or the national lab system or even the corporate lab infrastructure is not necessarily designed to create new companies out of it. It's designed to do research or it's designed to work on projects for the Department of Energy. What we said is, look, the United States needs a foundry, needs a capability to create new companies intentionally around the areas that we know are going to be of critical national importance. We have got to win on next generation robotics. We have got to win on thinking about the next generation of material science if we want to reindustrialize the United States. And in order for those companies to be built here, our thesis was, look, you can't just do it with venture capital alone.
Right.
We have to be able to take demand signals from the government or from the private sector, use that and build a platform that partners with scientists and researchers that may not know how to create a business. But we're saying, look, let us help you figure out product, business model. You do what you do best, which is innovate. We can help train you in how to be a CTO or a CEO. And we're going to wrap around all these services around you to build venture backable companies. That's very different than the traditional venture model. Venture funds are not set up to build businesses. They're set up to invest in businesses. We are set up to build new companies literally from the ground up in partnership with scientists or with founders. And we apply a whole set of services around that suite.
Can you unpack a little bit of some of those services that you are providing? If there is a potential innovator out there listening or watching to this, they're thinking, okay, what is it going to do? So let's unpack that a little bit.
Yeah. So a good example of this is we are currently building a company with a postdoc who left Los Alamos National Labs last year. We're about 6 to 8 months into that journey with this gentleman, and he is a brilliant scientist who was working on a next generation electrolyzer using acoustics, basically to enable for electrolyzers to be more cost effective to create low cost hydrogen energy. And what we did is said, okay, we find this technology breakthrough. We think it actually solves a meaningful demand signal for what the future of next generation energy might look like. But right now it's IP and it's a scientist. That's not investable.
Right.
You couldn't call a venture capitalist and say, invest in me. You got to have a business.
Right.
How is that business going to productize? What's it going to sell? What are the unit economics? What's the brand? Who else is on the team? So what we did is partner with that individual to build literally the business model. What are you going to sell? Are you selling hydrogen energy? Are you selling the electrolyzers that you're building? Are you an integrated business? Productize it. So actually working with that gentleman and his early team on taking that core science, taking that core technology, and building it into something that could be operating in the field and consumed by utility companies or data centers. and then working on the branding, recruiting to that team. So actually finding the other core hires that need to be with that CEO. We're also doing all the legal work to protect those patents. But think about, there are all these raw components that as you put them together, they create a business.
Yeah.
And what we say is we're going to look for that core innovation, and we're going to help fill in all the gaps with that entrepreneur. Wow. So those are some of the services that we do day in, day out.
How unique is this business model when we're talking about, because we've seen a lot of other venture capitalists. Are there other venture studios out there, or are you really kind of an anomaly in this era?
So there are other venture studios out there.
Okay.
Most of them, almost all of them, in fact, are software.
Okay.
So they are focused on building software companies. What we are doing that's unique is we are saying we are going to build in deep tech in these frontier technology areas that have long gestation periods, right? It takes a couple years to get the R&D done. And we're focused on building in those critical tech areas. We are the only studio that's solely focused on that.
Wow, that is incredible. In terms of the impact on this community, what are you hoping to do? What are you hoping to achieve with it in terms of this environment of New Mexico and Albuquerque in the metro area?
In short, Chad, we want to build $1 billion company here. we just really
a small goal,
it's we get up in the morning, this entire team, and we think about what is it going to take to build a company here that is the next Microsoft, that is the next Amazon, that is the next SpaceX. We really do believe that this community has all the trappings of a place that could succeed to build one of those in the next 5 to 10 years. There have been too many companies that have left New Mexico. There has been too much brain drain. There's been too much capital drain. And we're saying, look, we're investing here unapologetically to build a company that is going to be a winner. And what we hope to do is create a flywheel. Once you have a couple early winners, you start to have more job growth. You start to have more prosperity. You also create more and more businesses around that core win. Let's make this a place where when folks say, hey, I have a great idea in quantum technology, or I have a great idea in robotics, where should I build that? They'll know to think about New Mexico. They'll know to think about Albuquerque in the same way that today they might think about Boulder or Austin or San Francisco. Our goal, in short, is to put this place on the map when it comes to venture capital.
What do you think is standing in the way? Now, you mentioned, Microsoft, which, again, Bill Gates, famously was here for a bit, worked at MITS, helped develop Microsoft while he was here,
right.
And then, of course, went to Seattle, and the rest is history. What is standing in the way of keeping these companies or having them here already?
Yeah, it's a good question. We think about the Microsoft example often because it's a painful one. I think there's two things. The first one is, historically, there hasn't been enough what I'll call national capital. So think about, when we think about the kind of full spectrum of venture funding, which is really the lifeblood of all these early companies, traditionally, those venture funds have been located on the coasts and have been focused on the coast.
Right.
It is California and New York and North Carolina and Florida. These are some of the areas where most VC activity has lived. And we believe that as we have built out this platform, we have both the studio and we have a venture fund that's attached to that studio to actually invest in these companies. We are focused on investing in people here and keeping them here. So when your investor says, I want you to stay here, that's a statement. So just crowding in more capital. We know that we can't do it alone. Look, we are onto something that we're excited about and is building a national brand. But in order for us to really keep the next Microsoft here, we need to be able to tap into a much broader and deeper pool of capital. So what we're building is a venture consortium. Basically what that means is we are finding some of the largest, I think we have 10 of the largest deep tech, frontier tech venture funds with over 10 billion in AUM and assets that they manage. And they are focused on building and focused on building around the venture studio and the companies that come out of it. So we're actually bringing them to the table. They come here to New Mexico and spend time with our companies. They come to New Mexico and they spend time in the labs, and they get a sneak peek into the companies that we're building. And for us, that's a way for us to tap into that national profile that we have and bring other capital to the table beyond just us. This is one key component to keeping businesses here. The second is what we talked about earlier. we need more entrepreneurs here. We need a deeper well of folks that want to be founders. We think that the venture studio model helps convert and builds new founders.
Yeah.
And I think that's another way to keep businesses here, because a lot of times as folks get to a certain size, they say, oh gosh, I can't find a certain amount of talent here. I need to move. Well, we hope to make this really a kind of a home for talented individuals who are technical and who want to join startups.
Yeah. And we've heard that too with other, startups and companies that we have met and talked with. Veris Research is a great example. Grady and his team really want to keep people here because they know, they are really invested in that talent, and they understand that the success of the company really hinges on having those minds and that collaboration.
Yeah.
And I know that they are front and center on trying to get the minds, get them cultivated, developed, ready to rock and roll, but then making sure they're not flying off to Florida, New York, California. You had mentioned the New Mexico State Investment Council, and I'm wondering if we can expound a bit on that relationship.
Sure.
And how it is helping you and thereby helping other entrepreneurs get off the ground.
Well, it's been a core relationship for us, and one that, I said I was on a panel yesterday at University of New Mexico, and we were talking about this very question. And it is true that should it not be for the existence and I think the foresight of the State Investment Council, we would not be here. Wow. They don't know how much listeners and viewers know about the work that they are doing, but they are really building a mission and some momentum in New Mexico around investing in really high quality venture funds, asset classes like ourselves, like studios and new models. And they're really trying to think about where is it where New Mexico has an advantage. There are areas, like we make this case all the time to some businesses that say, hey, look, you should build here because, we have a whole set of natural resources here that make sense for you to be built here. They're capitalizing around those natural advantages and really focusing more capital and entrepreneurial energy on the state. So, that relationship has been core to us. We consider them kind of founders in what we're building. They made a commitment to us last year, a $50 million commitment.
Wow.
And, we are kind of scaling our platform because of that partnership. And it's also been a crowding in effect. So as they made that anchor investment, it's allowed us to go to other funders and say, hey, look, we're going to be headquartered here unapologetically in New Mexico. This is our flagship. And found other investors that have said, we love this mission. We love what you all are doing. We want to join. So State Investment Council is doing great work.
Are there actionable things that either our state government or private entities can be doing to help cultivate this environment? There's been conversation with other actors and other stakeholders, especially in space commerce, of wanting to develop a space valley, right?
Yeah.
That the Southwest is sort of home to all of this emerging technology, quantum hubs. I know there's a lot of quantum work happening here in New Mexico. Are there things that we can be doing to help build that up and to help accelerate that development? Yeah,
the first thing we should be doing is focusing on which of the industries we can win in.
Okay.
I know that there is an economic development priority sectors, but it's a long list. Mm-hmm. My strong opinion has been we've got to focus on 2 to 3 areas where we think we can win.
Really? Okay.
And so let's, as a state, have the conversation. Which industries do we think that New Mexico can be better than Texas and better than Arizona and better than Colorado, better than anybody in the country around? And let's double down on those industries. Space is one of them. Mm-hmm. Advanced energy is another. Quantum is another. I mean, let's have that conversation and start to focus and have a coordinated strategy around which industries we're going to double down on and how do we remove the hurdles to get more founders, more companies, small and large, to move here. I think the second thing that we have to do is, I think I always look back on the research. There was a 1973 or 74 paper that tried to study what created the magic of Silicon Valley. All across the world, everybody has tried to replicate what's happened there. There's, the Israelis have tried to do it. Singapore has tried to do it. Now, of course, Saudi Arabia and some of the Gulf countries are trying to replicate it. And one of the things that I keep coming back to is the findings of that paper said that it was a unique amount of what they call kind of soft or weak ties. And what that means is, ways where introductions happen naturally ways where there's lots of information sharing, a lot of public-private partnership, strong partnerships between the universities and companies. Like, we have to build that connective tissue. And I think that New Mexico has some work to do on that, but has a lot of potential to do it, which means when I get a pitch from an entrepreneur that might not be a fit for me, what do we do in the Valley when we get that? I send it to 4 other people and say, hey, these would be a good fit for you. I'd be happy to make the introduction. What can I do to help? I want you to succeed, even if I'm not going to be your investor. When, yesterday was a great example. There's a gentleman that we work really closely with named Doug Campbell, who is a donor at University of New Mexico, came out of the engineering department, has created a new lecture series. And so Chris Cassidy of the State Investment Council, myself at Roadrunner, and then another gentleman named Ward Hendon out of Dangerous Ventures, were interviewed by Doug at a public forum for students at the engineering school. And we spent 45 minutes on stage. What was more important was we spent 2 hours afterwards meeting with students, one-on-one. Okay. Folks that were like, hey, I want to create a business. How do I do this? Hey, I want to go work for Boeing. Do you know anybody? Hey, I've created this thing in my garage. What advice do you have for me? That is what creates an ecosystem where we have these ties. We're helping each other. We're bringing each other up. And we believe that this place can be a hub for innovation. I believe it. The folks that are building here believe it. Yeah. We need everybody to join us in this mission to make this place that way.
Yeah, it's the spirit of collaboration.
Exactly.
Really sounds like. So you kind of touched on a bit, and we got to wrap up here in a few minutes, but I want to talk about the call for innovators. You got someone saying, I got this thing, I'm working in my garage. Yeah. Again, if I remember correctly, Apple developed in, Steve Jobs' garage that he was working on this. So we may be sitting on the next Steve Jobs here in New Mexico. Who are you looking for? Who is the ideal candidate for you to work with?
That's a great question. So we generally work with folks that are entrepreneurs. Either they've been an entrepreneur in the past, they can be a first-time entrepreneur. But if they're a first-time entrepreneur, they have to have some vision for the future and some technology that fits into our areas. Our areas of focus are energy, manufacturing, and compute. Okay. So if you're building something, whether it's at a lab or even in your garage, that fits within these kind of core tech areas, and you have some vision for the future that says, I think that next generation energy transmission or transformers or the grid should look like X instead of Y. Those are the types of ideas that we really get animated about. The nature of venture is that we're looking for moonshots. We're looking for people who have a vision of the future that's dramatically different than the way that we do business today. That doesn't mean that there's not a whole set of entrepreneurs and ideas that are worthy of funding, but it just means that venture in particular is looking for those home run bets. And so if you have an idea, you can be a researcher, a student, an entrepreneur, first time or existing, an innovator, and you have a technology or even an idea or even a product and wireframe that you think articulates a different future within energy or compute or a different way of manufacturing things, we are a great fit for you. The way that you can reach us is to go to our website. We have an area where you can contact the team. Okay. Somebody from our team will review the idea and make sure to get in touch with you. Most importantly, if it's not an idea that we'll build with you, like I said earlier, we want to make sure you get to the right place.
Right. And that spirit, I think sometimes, we were talking about roadblocks sometimes. It feels like oftentimes that spirit of collaboration or the lack of it from people can be a roadblock. So I think it's really promising, and I think that it really speaks to your ultimate goal that you're willing to say, if it's not us that's going to make you shine, maybe this one is going to make you shine.
Exactly.
And it seems like we need more of that, this sort of collective idea of collaboration to raise New Mexico up to that level.
Exactly.
Perfect world, everything goes exactly to plan. Yes, New Mexico is going to become that. How long of a timeline do you look at before, if we do strike gold, that New Mexico could become the next Silicon Valley?
I mean, I'll tell you, I think things are changing now. I think we are having a moment in this state. The actions in the Capitol that the State Investment Council is doing, the recent announcements of quantum companies that are moving here, I think New Mexico is having a moment. We have to believe in it and see it, but I truly believe that this is an inflection moment for the state. And so I think we're having that moment. What does it take? I think, I hope and believe that we will have a winner in this state. We'll have a company in one of these frontier technology areas that was born and built here and stayed here over the next 5 years. Doesn't mean that, New Mexico is going to be Silicon Valley in 10 years. No, it doesn't mean that. But it does mean that we will be a place that is recognized as a home for innovation and a place where we can credibly make the argument more and more to more companies that you should build here because it makes sense for your business and you will do better by being here.
Yeah.
And today, that argument is okay. In 5 years, that argument will be even stronger.
Wow. It's just creating that gravitational pull to bring all these people
Exactly.
in. Yeah,
exactly.
It's exciting. Adam, thank you so much for your time today, and thank you for what you're doing.
Sure.
And, I really hope that, maybe someone out there watching is thinking, it's going to be my business. Mine is going to be the one that sort of cracks the mold and helps us grow and expand. I certainly hope that they are listening to this and they can look back and say, it was on this day, it was this guy that inspired me to do it, because it sounds like the mission very inspirational. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you, Chad.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
And again, guys, if you want more information about this or any of the other episodes of New Mexico Frontiers, the digital series, or New Mexico Frontiers, the TV series, KRQE.com. If you're watching us on KRQE.com and not on our app, make sure that you download it on Apple TV, Fire Stick, Roku, all that good stuff. Until next time, I'm Chad Brummett. This is New Mexico Frontiers, the digital series.